Welcome to the C Sharp Crash Course. In this course, you'll learn the fundamentals of C Sharp, a powerful and versatile programming language. Whether you're a complete beginner or looking to refresh your skills, this course is designed to get you up and running with C Sharp quickly. In this first section, we'll cover setting up your development environment, installing Visual Studio, and creating your first C Sharp project. We'll also go over the basics of the C# language syntax and structure. Next, we'll dive into variables and data types. You'll learn about the different data types in C#, including integers, floats, doubles, strings, and booleans. We'll also cover how to declare and initialize variables. In this section, we'll explore control flow statements in C#. You'll learn how to use if-else statements, switch cases, and loops to control the flow of your program. Here, we'll discuss functions and methods in C#. You'll understand the importance of methods, how to define them, and how to call them in your program. We'll also cover method parameters and return values. This section introduces you to the core concepts of object-oriented programming in C#. You'll learn about classes, objects, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and abstraction, which are the building blocks of OOP. We'll then move on to exception handling in C#. You'll learn how to handle errors gracefully using try-catch blocks, and how to throw and catch exceptions in your code. In this section, we'll look into collections and generics in C#. You'll learn about arrays, lists, dictionaries, and other collection types. We'll also cover how to use generics to create reusable and type-safe data structures. In this section, you'll learn how to work with files in C#. We'll cover reading from and writing to files, as well as handling file-related exceptions. To wrap up, we'll summarize what you've learned in the course and provide some resources for further learning. By the end of this course, you'll have a solid foundation in C# and be ready to take on more advanced topics and projects. Let's jump right into it.
We're going to set up the development environment for C# on Windows, Mac, and Linux. I'll show you the easiest one in this video so you can get started with this course as soon as possible. If you're trying to become a .NET developer, which is basically going to use a C# programming language to build web applications, server-side applications, or games, we need to have a .NET setup, and .NET setup will automatically help you to set up the C development as well. The easiest way to set up .NET development on Windows, Mac, or Linux is by downloading the .NET SDK and then just installing that. In my case, I've already installed .NET SDK, and if you click on this download .NET SDK, you'll see you'll start downloading exe file again. I've already downloaded that, so I don't need it. So I'll go back. Once you install on Windows, Mac, or Linux, you'll be able to use the terminal and then run a command. If you go to terminal, Windows, or PowerShell, you should be able to run this .NET command. It says net-info. And as you can see, it says the .NET runtimes are installed, which is .NET version 8 and the .NET Core. This will allow me to run the C# code very easily. Make sure to install .NET SDK if you want to get along with this course. In C# world or .NET world, the IDE that people use is Visual Studio, and people love it. Millions of developers use this IDE. You need to go to this website, Visual Studio, search on Google, and you get to this page and click on Visual Studio Download. This is like a setup that you will be able to follow along to install that. And it's pretty straightforward. If you've ever installed any IDE before, I'm sure C# is not going to be your first language. That's fine. I'll walk you through how to do it. Now, I already downloaded that, so I'll click on Downloads and click on this Visual Studio Setup. Click on Yes. It's going to bring up the installer for me. Once the installer is up, then we will follow the installation process. So click on Continue. It will set a few things. While it's installing, I want to talk about another IDE called Code. Any developer in the world, if you ask it, they will say yes, because this is the most popular free open source text editor. It works for all programming languages out there. I personally use it all the time. There is a complete set of development tools Mostly people .NET development will, use Visual Studio, but code for C Sharp, it works pretty good. I've already installed Studio on Windows, but you can click on Modify to see options. Once you run the setup, you will get to this page where you select ASP.NET Web Development. If Node, select Node. If you haven't installed Node, click on Install. It will fully install for you. Then I will open Visual Studio to show you what it's gonna look like. Once you run Visual Studio, then we can use Visual Studio to create a new project easily. Now I'm gonna click on Create New Project. And for C, you don't need to create a crazy development project, Inspire or some other options. All we need is a console app. This will allow us to run the C Sharp and will allow us to learn C Sharp. So I'll click on console and click on next. It's going to ask what SDK I want to use. Can use this .NET. If we want to enable the container support, right now we don't because I'm running this in a parallel, so I can't do that. Click on create and then I'll show you some buttons to run the project, and then we'll get to VS, which we will be using for this C. You can see it has this console dot write line. This is like a default program. Every time you learn a new programming language, you get this. To run this project, you click on this play button. It will open up this output and will give you a window, this like terminal, and you will see it says hello. So the program executed. I'll click enter to close the window. Right now you have full feature IDE. You can do a lot here. Every developer will use this for advanced projects. But we are going to use VS Code. So close this. I've already installed VS Code. If you haven't, go to VS Code, search in Google, click on download for Windows. It will start downloading the exe file. I'm going to go back to VS Code and I will try to open the same project. Click on open folder. Actually, we can learn how to create a new project using VS Code. If you have a computer which is not strong enough to run, what you need to do is once you open the Visual Studio Code, you go to this extensions, and then here you will need to search for C Sharp. Once you search, you'll get to see these two extensions, C Sharp DevKit and C Sharp. You need to make sure you install both. Once you install both of them, then you'll get to see this create .NET project option in the folder. If you haven't opened folder, go to command palette by going to show all commands. Click here and then you search for and then new project. Now this option will only appear once you install the .NET C Sharp DevKit and a C Sharp extension in VS Code. So I'll click on this new project. It will take 30 seconds to bring up the templates. Click on console app, create a console app by creating a new folder, and then we just say C Sharp, enter, select that folder, and then the name of the project would be console app 1, that's fine, and then simply click on create project. The project is created. I'll go into this folder and there is a program.cs file, which is an entry file for our project. If you want to run this, click on this play button, which says run code. The shortcut key is Control Alt N. Click on that and you'll see it will go into debug console. Actually, output will take some time. Scripts not recognized. Okay, that's fine. The reason for that is if you go to the folders, you need to go to Solution Explorer. And then here in the Solution Explorer, you right click and you get start without debugging. And then you'll see we'll start executing that program for us, and you'll see the hello world will be printed out onto the terminal. There you go. So console app.1. Now, while we are learning C Sharp, we don't want to keep running this project. What I want to do is to run the project in watch mode using one command. I'm in a C Sharp folder, but the C Sharp folder has a console app within it. So we'll go cd console app. Here I will run this .NET watch command. This command will run the project in terminal. You see here it says hello world, but it's also waiting for files to change. If I change this to hello developer and save the file, you'll see it says building, and then it will run the project and it says hello developer. Now, don't worry about this line. This is like a hello world program when you create a new project. This is how you set up your C# development. I prefer you use Visual Studio because that's much faster when it comes to .NET C# bigger projects. But to just learn C#, doesn't matter you use Visual Studio or Terminal, as long as you have a way to edit the C# files, which is this program.cs file, and the CS stands for C#. You'll be able to follow along easily. Next, we will learn how to set up development environment on a Mac. Process is pretty similar on a Mac as well. So if you go to Chrome on a Mac and go to download.net page, you will find that it is giving you a link to download .NET SDK ARM Silicon. If you have an Intel version, search for that as well. But if you have an Intel Mac, what are you doing with your life? Just upgrade and get a cheapest Apple Silicon, because that's going to save a lot of time for you. Now, in terms of IDE, we have Studio Code, which is a cross-platform IDE. So we're going to be using Studio Code for this course. If you are looking for an alternative to Studio, which is a full-fledged IDE, there used to be a Studio version for Mac, but Microsoft has deprecated it and it's no longer available. Your best bet for .NET on a Mac is the IDE called Writer by JetBrains. Now, this has always been a paid IDE, but recently JetBrains made some changes to the pricing. Now it is available for free for non-commercial use, learning, self-education, content creation, open source, and hobby development. If you're serious about .NET and want to expand your career, use Writer. If you're on a Mac or Windows, you can still use Writer because Writer is also available for Windows as well. So if I go in here and I go to JetBrains Writer, you'll see you can download this cross-platform IDE for Windows, which is amazing. You will have all your key binding and everything in one place. So for this course, I might use Writer some places because it's free for a learning, and so I think we can use Writer. But because this is just a C# course and you don't really need advanced intelligence and stuff, so I'm gonna stick to Visual Studio Code, which is lighter on any operating system. That's it for setup. Let's get started with C# development by looking at some simple programs and concepts.
C# programs consist of one or more files. Each file contains 0 or more namespaces. A namespace contains types such as classes, structs, interfaces, enumerations, and delegates or other namespaces. The following example is the skeleton of a C# program that contains all of these elements. The main method is the entry point of a C# application. When the application is started, the main method is the first method that is invoked. There can only be one entry point in program. If you have more than one class that has a main method, you must compile your program with the startup object compiler option to specify which main method to use as the entry point. You don't have to explicitly include a main method in a console application project. Instead, you can use the top-level statements feature to minimize the code you have to write. Top-level statements allows you to write executable code directly at the root of a file, eliminating the need for wrapping your code in a class or method. This means you can create programs without the ceremony of a program class and a main method. In this case, the compiler generates a program class with an entry point method for the application. The name of the generated method isn't main, it's an implementation detail that your code can't reference directly. An application must have only one entry point. A project can have only one file with top-level statements. Putting top-level statements in more than one file in a project results in the following compiler error. You can write a main method explicitly, but it can't function as an entry point. The compiler issues the following warning. By default, the .NET CLI or C# extension in Visual Studio Code creates a top-level statement program when you create a new program. Here's a top-level statement program. I will go to
console app and choose .NET watch command. This will compile this project for us and run in watch mode. Hello world is being printed. If I change this to developer, welcome to learn C hash, I'll save and you'll see the program will print out hello developer, welcome to learning C hash. So here is the entry point where the program started and the name where the program ended. So .NET watch command is going to be your best friend when you're changing your code. Now let's convert the same code into a class base with the main method. I'll copy this and delete these lines. I will start with the keyword class, just follow for now, and I will just use a name hello. Press tab, I'll paste that, and you'll see the program still compiling, and then writing hello developer, welcome to learning C#. You can use this class-based entry point for a bigger project using a minimal API, which is a new thing in C#, which we will cover later. Let's learn about comments, variables, and data types in this section. Let's talk about comments. Comments are very common in most of the programming language. Comments help you to explain your code, make it more readable, or prevent execution when testing alternative code. For example, about this line, I can write a comment what this line of code does. So I can come back to this code and understand what exactly happening here. Comments can also be used to explain the code to other developers. Like you're working in a team and you wrote a function or a code which you want to explain to the other developer, and comments are used for that. There are two types of comments, single line comments and multi-line comments. So single line comments will start by 2// and we can write this is the first line of my code. Once you do that, you'll see the compilation ignores this line. There's a multi-line comment, so if you do 1/ and then you can write like multi-line comments or whatever you want to type. Comments are really useful. Once you get used to them, you will start writing a lot of comments about your code. Let's talk about variables. What is a variable? A variable is a container for storing a data value. In C# we have different types of data. We have integers, we have string, we got double, got character, we have boolean. Now, different programming languages have a different data types, but these are the most common ones. You can create your own data types, but that's an advanced topic. We'll talk about that later. Now, how do we declare a variable? For example, I would like to create a variable which holds the hello world string and store the hello world value into its variable. The syntax for creating a variable is by specifying its type, variable name, equal to the value. Now, variable type can be either this, and there's a different keywords in C# to specify what type of variable you're creating. For the string, I would like to start by using a string type and name my variable message equal to double quotation, and we'll just say hello world. Save. Now I will use console.writeLine function, and instead of writing hello world here, I will use the variable message. Save. In the code you'll see it is printing hello world. Now if I change the value of the message, let's say I'll change to this, save, you'll see it is reading the variable's value. Now we can create different types of variables. I will use the int keyword. We'll just say num1 equal to 1. Then you can create a double, which is double 1 equal to, let's say, 1.5. Then you can create a character, chr1 equal to c. And then you can also create a boolean, bool1 equal to true or false. These are the different types of variables that we just created. Values for these variables can be changed as they are mutable. So if I say message equal to ABC, the console log will write ABC. When I created this message variable and I was specifying its value here, but at the line down below, I updated the message value. So message equal to ABC, and that's the final value of message. That's what getting printed. You can update the values of these variables. But let's just say you don't want the variable to update its value. You can use a keyword before the type like const, and now we'll save, and C# will throw an error. It says the left hand side of an assignment must be a variable property or indexer. Because I'm using const, I cannot update its value. So I'll save the code and the code will start working again. You can also define variables in a single line. For example, if I want to use this integer type, so I'll start by typing integer num2 equal to 2, and then I'll use comma, and I'll just say y equal to 3, comma, z equal to 5, and then semicolon. So basically I created 3 integer type variables, so I will just change this to x. That'll make more sense. In C#, using the integer type, you can do a mathematical calculation for subtraction, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That is very easy. I'll remove these variables and this console statement as well. I'll just copy some integer values, and the value C, as you can see, has C equal to A plus B. You can see the plus keyword is going to add variable value 18 in variable value B. Not 18, actually A B value. I'll run the code and you'll see we will have an answer for value C, which is 24. So if I change the value of B to, let's say, 10, I would expect the value to be 28 this time. As you can see, we got the answer 28. So we can add some more mathematical operations, multiplication and division. You can perform on integer, you can perform on double as well. You can also do plus, which will be called as a concatenation for a string value. For example, I'll create a two-string value. We'll say first name equal to John, and then string last name equal to Mike. If I want to print John Mike together, I'll just say string full name equal to first name plus last name. Now if I print out the value for full name, which will be done using console.writeLine, we will simply print out full name, which will take the value of this full name variable, and you can see it says John Mike right here. I will just comment out this code so we can see the answer for John Mike. As you can see, there's no space between, so what I can do here is concatenate an empty string as well. Let's save now, and you will see that John Mike will have a space. Next, in a mathematical calculation, I'll remove all of these values. We don't need them. I'll just uncomment this code. We will now create another value for C. Let's just say 2. And then I will create an int answer variable. Let's just say A multiply B multiply C. And if I do a console.writeLine, the answer is 360. Now let's just say B multiply C and then minus A. What will be the answer? Answer is minus 2. Now let's just say I will wrap that in parentheses and save. This time the answer would be 16. So basically the order operation works as it works in mathematics. So if you go into the school up to year 12, you should understand the order of operations,
and also integer precision and limits as well. So let's just say I will do a divided by b, and I will just do multiplied. The compiler will execute this and make its value. Then that value will be multiplied with c and the value of a minus b. So these are very common operations you should know. Now we can also have double types, which is like decimal types, and it's all work the same way as they work in mathematics. I don't want to really explain the maths here. We just quickly go through the C# language. Next, we are going to learn about type casting. For example, here's a type, the integer type, or B is a string type. What about, let's just say, if I do wrap that in string? Okay, now this is a string type. Even though it's a digit 10, it's now a string type. Sometimes you want to convert the type to another type. Let's say if I do A plus B. What do you think what will be the answer? I'll save, and you can see C# is throwing an error. Well, what's going on here? Let's say how we convert the B into integer. We can do that by using a convert. So let's use a convert function, which is a built-in C# dot to, and we can say integer. And then we will wrap that, save, and then you'll see no errors, and you get the value 28. So what is the value? We got 1810. Before it added this value of b, which is a string value, it converted the string into integer and then added, and the result is 28. Correct? Now let's just say if I will go ahead and then add an alphabet to it, what will happen? If I add that, there will be an exception thrown, because if you have an alphabet 10a, this is not going to be converted into integers. That's the problem. We can't do that, so you will see an error. Boolean, it's going to throw an error. The reason for that, the 10 is not actually a Boolean, but let's just say if I change this to true, save, and then convert to Boolean b. Still, it cannot do that. So it cannot be applied to operator type int and a bool. So you can't convert that. But you should be able to use these functions where possible. Now let's talk about operators, mathematical operations, strings, conditions in C#. First of all, operators. So how many types of operator we have seen already? We have seen an assignment operator, equal sign. We've used math operators, plus, minus, multiplication, division. We also have comparison operators. Comparison operators are basically greater than, less than, equal to, greater than, or less than, equal to, or not equal to. So these are like comparison operators. So let me create a couple of variables, and then we will try this. We are going to create int a equal to 10, int b equal to 5. We can do int ans equal to a less than b, and we're going to do console dot write line, and we're going to print out ans. Now there's an error. Can you point out what is an error? We're trying to check whether a is less than b and then store the result into. The problem is this data type. This is not going to return a data type of int. Logical operators returns booleans. It can either return true or false. So if I change this to bool, error will go away, and then you can see we get the result false. Now if I do greater than b, we should get true, because 10 is greater than 5, which is true. We also have
checks for equality. Let's say we use another int c equal to 10. If I say bool 1 equal to a equal to c, if both values are equal, then we're going to print out as 1, and you will see the result, which is true for the second true. If I change this to 1, the second value should now become. We also have greater than equal to. So if a is greater than equal to b, it should return true. If I do 10, comment this line out, you'll see the result will be true. The reason for that is a is equal to b or greater than. Now, if I change this to 11, it is still true. As soon as I change this to 9, the comparison will be false because a is not greater than equal to b. These are general mathematical operations we studied in school. Now we have some logical operators as well, logical operators, and then logical represents and or this exclamation mark. So basically we can create a combination of comparison. Let's say this is going to be returning its value. We can say a greater than equal to b. Now in this case it's false. We can say add a or c greater than b, which is true. What would be the value? It is false. If I change this to or, then the value is true. So basically logical operators works in a really mathematical way, like true equal to true, false equal to false. So all that mathematical equations works here as well. So it will check here. If it's false, then it will go to the next value and then check if it's true, then it will set the value to true. If the first condition is true, then it will only look at the first condition and set its value to true. When we do and, it means that both conditions must pass. Both conditions must have a value of true. So if I change this to less than equal to, you will see that the answer is true because this is true and this is true. So they are both true. That means the answer will be true. So here we have a logical operators. Now let's quickly jump to strings. Strings has some utility functions. I'm gonna just remove this code and we're gonna create string value. Let's say name equal to John, and I can call concatenation on it. For example, we can change this to first name and then last name. String concatenation can be done using plus operator. If we do console.write line, we can say first name plus last name, save, and you'll see it will say John Mike. String has many methods as well. For example, if I will do console.write line, we can use first name and press dot, and you'll see all the methods available on a string. Let's say you want to uppercase this, call the function, and you'll see John printed in uppercase. If I do Mike and use this last name, I have a method to lower, save, and you'll see even though the mic is written in uppercase, it will be printed in lowercase. String has utility functions. Call them by pressing dot. Get the list of available methods. Press Control space. You'll get all the methods available. On the right, you will see the description, what that method does. If you want to check the length of that first name, let's comment this line out and save this. You'll see the length is 4. So length basically is like number 1 digit, second digit, third, fourth. So there's 4 digits, and then we get the exact answer 4. Let me talk about string interpolation. Let's just say you have this first name and last name. You want to write a message. Say, my full name is John Mike. How do I add this variable and read the value from it? You can do that by using string interpolation. Start your string with a dollar sign. Use curly brackets to read the variable. Save, and you see the printed value will be my name is John Mike. And if I just use dot to lower and make sure this gets printed properly, now it says my name is John Mike. This is called string interpolation. You can read the variable value within a string if you use a dollar sign starting with dollar sign. Now let's go next and take a look at access string. Let me write another line in the console right line. I want to access a character in the string. I'll say first name, and the syntax is square brackets. If I type 0 and run, you'll see it is printing this J. So what is a J? The string character starts with 0. It's like an array of characters that makes up a string. J is on index 1, O is on 0, and H is on index 2. We can access those values by passing the index. So here I'm going to pass 3, save, and you'll see the answer would be N. But what if I pass 4, enter? You'll see an error which says exists code with error. The string doesn't contains that length and doesn't have that index. We can't access that, which makes sense. This is how you access string. And next, we're gonna take a look at some special characters for the string. Let's say you want to add this causes an issue. It says represent text as a sequence. So what if you want to add that? The way you add that is by using a single code within that. If you use a single code and save, you'll see it will print out this single code. Let's just say you want to add double quote in your string. This will cause a problem because you're starting a string with this double quotes here, but also you're ending a string right here. But there's another double quote here, which is trying to end that, but that's the problem. To be able to use a special character, you will need to use this /, and then now it will be treated as part of the string. What if you want to add a backslash? So well, what we do is a double backslash, and then save, you'll see the slash will be treated as part of the string. There are few escape characters in C#. For example, if you want a new line, type \n, it will break the line. You also have this T for tabs. You have a backspace for B. If you put this next to full, you'll see it will backspace with full. So now we have one L missing there. Let's learn about conditions in C#. How do we make decisions in C#? We do that by using if and else statement. Think of an if and else statement as a digital fork in the road. We present a condition, and based on whether the condition is true or false, the program takes one or two paths. We start a condition using logical operators that can be used within the if condition. We'll start by creating two variables, int a equal to 5, int b equal to 10. To check whether b is greater than a, you could do with if conditions. So if you say b greater than a within the parentheses, and then in brackets, you will write the code console.write line, and then we say b is greater. If it's not greater than a, we would like to use else condition. We can also say console.write line, and we can say b is not greater than a. Now let's run the code. Go to terminal, clear, and .NET watch. You will see that B is greater than A gets printed because the condition is true. If I make this 11 and run, the print should say B is not greater than A, right? Let's learn about switch statement. Switch statement allows you to run one code block depending on the value. The basic syntax is start with a switch, add an expression, take a variable A, open curly brackets, use a keyword case, and then the value. Let's just say 1, and I use a colon. If case 1 is true, write a code block, say console.write line, then say A is equal to 1, and break out of the code. Let's create another case. If it's 3, if A is 1, this will be printed. If A is 3, this will be printed. Change 1 to 3. Save the code. Nothing printed. Change the value from 11 to 1. Save. You'll see we have A is equal to 1, which is this case block being executed. Now, if I change this to 3, you'll see in the terminal, A is equal to 3. That's being executed. If no case is valid, then you run a code block using a keyword called default. We'll type console, then you say default case. Break out of the switch statement. Now we're going to change A value to 4, which means it's not going to match case 1 and case 3. Save the code and you will see it will say default case. So that's the basic syntax of switch statement. We're going to start learning arrays. Arrays are basically a very fundamental data structure in many programming language, like in Java, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript. Every programming language must have arrays. Some languages call them lists. In CSharp, we call them lists. So the way we can create that is by specifying the type. So I'll just use type, square brackets, and then name of array equal to square brackets, and then the value depending on the type. We're going to be creating an array for cars. So you start by using string, and I will name it cars and add some cars in it, like Volvo. Currently, we have string values in an array. If I start typing a number value, you see it's going to throw an error. The reason for that is because we have hard-coded the type that we want string values to be assigned or set to cars variable. So typing the type of your data is very important. I'll delete this one and then the arrow will go away. So if you want to create an arrow for numbers, you can do this. And let me say numbers equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we got 4 numbers. But if you add a string value, it will throw an error. For example, hello. It's going to throw an error because it is an array for integers. Array values have indexes, and indexes are very important when you're trying to access the value within an array. For example, if you want to just access this BMW, you will have to do the name of the variable and then the index value for that value. And arrays in C# starts from 0 index. The BMW value will be index 1, and then we have Ford, which will be on index 2. So the first value always have an index 0, second value have 1, and then so on. This is how the array works in C# and in many other programming languages. Now let's just say we want to render or print out the BMW value. I'll use cars and then square bracket and then the index, so which will be 1. Now the way we can print it by using console dot write line, and then I will wrap it in parentheses, and if I run the code, you will see that in the terminal we have the value printed BMW. Let's just say I will try to access this last value, which will have an index of 2. Enter, and then you'll see Ford is what gets printed. Similarly, I will try to access the value in the numbers array. So if I type console.write line, and then we just say numbers, and then a square bracket syntax, and then if you want to press the first value, and you type 1 for the second value, actually, I'll save the code, and you'll see number 2 is what's getting printed. So as you can see that this is how we create an array. Now we're going to look at how we loop through an array. For example, if you want to print out all of these values, the easiest way is using the conventional for loop. I will remove this console log and we start with the keyword for, and then start with parentheses, and then we just do a number, which is going to be integer I equal to 0, and then I less than cars. So what we can do here is we can either do, let's say, 5 or 4, and then we can do I plus. This is just a loop, and then this will basically go through or run this code every time this number gets incremented. So I'll do now is console.write line, and then we can do cars. So what's happening here is when the code runs, you will see that it will print out. There's a problem which says int I is equal to 0 less than 4. The problem is there's no index 4. We can read the maximum index or length for cars array by using dot, and then all the functions available for you in an array. We can do length. This is going to give us the length of array, and then if you run this now, you'll see we got 0 Volvo, 1 BMW, Ford, 2, and that's pretty much it. We can do something like this. We can go through and change this to line, and then I can do some manipulation, which we'll learn. For strings, I will get that $sign, and then in the curly brackets, you can access core index 1. Save it, and you will see that it will say you can access Volvo on index 0, index 1. We need to give it a little bit of a space here. So we'll just do a space, save, and then you will see that we got you can access Volvo on index 0. You can access, that will make it more readable. Now you see that we got Volvo on index 0, BMW on index 1, Ford on index 2. So this is how you loop through on an array. Very easy because you've got this index set the value, read the length, and then just keep incrementing. This operator is going to do similarly. For example, I equal to I plus 1. You can do the same statement, get the current value of I, and then add 1 into it, and then set the new value to it. And you can do that easily by just typing I plus. Okay? Now let's take a look at a different types of array. Basically a list. A list is some sort of a data structure in C#, and you can create a list of cars. The syntax for that is, let me try adding that. So list is, it represents a strongly typed list of objects that can be accessed by numbers, provides method to search, sort, and manipulate list. Very cool data structure, and then you can do that by using list keyword and use this greater than equal to signs, and then the name, let's say cars equal to, and then we can add cars to it. Let's use the same square brackets, and then we can add BMW. BMW. I can add Ford. Then you can add Kia. I'm going to try adding multiple values so we can really see other features of list. Toyota. And then we can also add Honda, Hyundai. Let's save this. And now list data structure also provides a lot of features or functions. So if I type cars dot, you can see that I can use all of these functions, and VS Code is pretty good telling you what the function does. For example, if you use the append, it appends the value to the end of the sequence. So let's use append and then the type to be string and add the value ABC. Okay, now we'll do console.write line, and then I'm going to print out cars. Let's save and see what we get. You can see there's an error. So what we need to do is use to string. And now let's see what gets printed. You see the collection generic.list system string. So there is a problem within our string. I'm gonna go remove this, save, and let's see what happens. Okay, still there's an issue. To print the value in a console, we need to use a loop. And for the list, we need to use for each loop. So if I use a keyword for each, this is going to get me this boilerplate, and here I'm gonna use cars. And then we simply do console.write line and then item save, and then you'll see it's gonna print all of them on the right line: BMW, Ford, Kia, Hyundai, right? But the thing is, it didn't actually. So what's going on here? Let me just remove this. That should be okay. Let's take a look at some of the functions available for lists. So if I type cars dot, I can click on add, and then I can do ABC this time. Let's see the add does it or not. So if I do add, and now you can see the ABC gets printed. So that means that pen has some different features. Let's see what happens. Now it's not really appending, so I think this is going to be like appends a value to the end of the sequence, a new sequence that ends with element. Okay, so that's what it's not going to add, but it's going to append it. Now we're going to get some other options available. For example, clear. I'll save, and you'll see nothing will be printed because before the loop runs, it actually clears everything from the list. That makes your list empty. You can also remove an item from the list. So let's say cars dot remove, and then you can pass in the value. So this is going to be, let's say, BMW. It's going to try matching that, and then it's going to remove that. So now if I save, you'll see it's still printing BMW. And the reason for that, it has a mismatch in spelling. So I will change that, and now this time you'll see it is not going to print BMW. It actually removes it before it runs loop. If you want to find out the index of a certain value, for example, this Honda, you can do that by, let me just do console.write, and then we can do cars.index of, and then you can pass in the value. Okay, and then you'll save, and you'll see the index of value is 3. This is the first index, which is 0, second index, which is 1, and then third, because the array index starts from 0. This is how you can do that. You can also do a sort of array, which is going to print out array after it sorts. So cars.sort, here's the function. As you can see, it says it sorts the element in the entire list using the default comparer. So let's save, and now the print will be different. As you can see here, the last print was Ford, Kia, Toyota, Honda. But now this time it sorts it. It makes sure that ABC first, then Ford, then Honda. You can pass in your custom comparer as well if you want to. You can create lists of other types as well. Let's say if I change this to int, and then we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to change the name of the variable. Okay. That's a guide for arrays and loops in C Sharp. In this section of C Sharp tutorials, we are going to learn one of the main concepts in any programming language. Methods, or some programming languages called functions. A method is a block of code which only runs when it is called. You can pass data known as parameters into methods. Methods are used to perform certain actions, and they're also called functions in some programming languages. But why use method? To reuse code, define the code once and then you can use it many times. For example, you want to create a function which is going to calculate certain values for you. For example, addition. We can call a function by using that name of the function, and then it will perform the action for us. Let's try creating a method which will add two numbers for us. You need to start by setting its return time, because a method can also return a value. In this case, we are going to start by using a void keyword, which means that this method does not have any return value. And you will learn more about return values later in this video. But for now, just use the void keyword and then the method name. Now the method name, we're going to use add, and then followed by parentheses, and then we are going to add curly brackets. This is the common syntax of creating a method. Now, what about adding? We need to give this method two numbers, which it will perform operations. So in this parentheses, you can start by adding the type of that, which is going to be int, and then the name, which means x or a, whatever the name you want to give, and then int y. Now this is going to calculate the addition of x and y. First of all, there has to be number. So what we can do here is console.write line, and then we can say x plus y. Okay, that's going to be the value that it's going to log. Now, the way we call this method is by using the name of the function. So for example, I will say add and then pass in two values. So I'll just say 2, 2. And then let's go into the console, and I will use the command .NET watch, which will run the code in a watch mode. And once done, you will see the answer which is printed is 4. Now if I change this to, let's say, 6, save, and then you can see the answer is 8. Now the method is very useful when you want to reuse the code. Let's just say I can call this add method as many times as I want. So if I say add 3.7, then we can add 4.8, and I'm going to save this. And now you'll see this add method will be called 3 times, and the values are printed in the console. So as you can see, that the methods are very important. You can create methods to do certain things. For example, to add, to subtract, to multiply, and also in the computer technology world, you can do a lot more within the method. For example, creating a method which will read a text file from any folder of your computer. So you can do a lot of things. Now let's go ahead and create a couple of methods. We will just say subtract, and then we can pass xy. Then this is going to do a console.log for us as well. Write line, and then x plus y. It's going to subtract. So we need to use this minus symbol, and then that's it. We're going to add t, so we don't have any error. Now I can call a subtract method. I'm just going to remove this and then add a subtract method. let's see, subtract 2.6, and the answer should be -4. As you can see, it's been printed in the console. Now we understand how we create a method. Let's create a method which will do calculation for us, depending on what calculation we want to do. And then it will return the value, right? So we can actually return the value and store the value returned from a function. Currently, if you say var x equal to add, or let's just say int x equal to add, it's going to throw an error because it says it cannot implicitly convert the type void to int. Now, this add method is supposed to return the integer, right? So you can modify this method, but what I'm going to do is remove these methods and create a function which will do a lot of calculation for us. It will do add, subtract, multiply, and division for us. Let's go ahead and then write a function. We will name the function calculate, and the return value should be integer from that calculate function. I'm going to return type to integer. So we do int x and then int y, and the calculation should be either plus, minus. So we can do something like string value and then say operation. And then we will do calculate, recall the function, and then we are going to, depending on operation, for example, let's just say we can use if statement. We can say if operation equal to plus, then we are going to use the keyword, which is going to be return, and we're going to use x plus y. Okay, if that is the case, then we can also do if operation equal to minus, then we're going to return x minus y. If operation equal to, let's just say, multiply, then we're going to return the multiplication. And then if operation equal to divide, then we're going to return x divided by y. And then if it's not, if the operation is wrong, then we are going to throw an exception or throw an error. Let's just say return. We're going to do invalid function or invalid operation. So what we can do here is we can throw an error. So through new argument expression, and then we can say wrong operation. There are many ways that you can throw an error, but we can do that right now is with just like exception. And that exception is simply just a single parameter string value that it takes. Now, if I call this function, let's say we're going to call the function calculate, but I'm going to store the value, which is going to be integer value equal to calculate. And then for the x, we can say 5, 5. And then operation should be, let's just pass in plus. Okay, and then I'm going to do a console.writeLine val, save it, and then you will see the result, which is 10. Now, if I pass an operation, let's just say s, right? Then save, and you will see this is going to throw an error. It says unhandled exception, system exception, wrong operation. So that is the problem, right? We have an invalid operation. That means it's going to throw an error. But you can also give a message to a user that what they've done wrong. Then we can also say pass operation as, and then you can pass in plus, minus, multiply, and divide. Save, and then you'll see the message. Here it says wrong operation, pass operation as, plus, minus, multiply, divide. And if I go ahead and then change that to, let's say, divide, save it, and then you'll see the answer should be, let's just say, is 1, because 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now, if I change this to, let's say, d, and then 5, the answer should be 10 this time. Let's see, what is it? Answer is 10. And let's just say you will change this to 5 divided by 4. Now the answer be in the decimal in the long, but it's coming up as 1 because we pass in the integer, and that's what it does. It just rounds the value. We can actually improve this function. Let's just say we don't want to do this, right? What we can do here is we can pass in the default operation value. Now let's just say if I do this equal to, and then we can do, let's say, plus. Now, if I do not pass any expression, for example, calculate, we can just say like that. The answer should be 9 because the default value gets triggered in. If we don't pass in the operation value anymore, it's going to just assume that it's going to be plus. But let's just say if I pass this, let's add multiplication, save, and this time you will see the answer is 20 because we passed the value which will override the default value that we passed in as a parameter of the function. We can also send a named argument in our function. For example, right now we're using this int x and y, but let's just say we need to pass the value. The first would be x and the second would be y automatically. But let's just say we want to make 5 to the value of x, y first, because we are passing. Let me just make a little zoom out so we can see the full function. Now, if I do this, for example, I'll use this y colon and then do x colon, and then for this one, we don't even pass it, right? The function's still valid. Now, because it's going to add, so it's going to be, answer is like 9. But let's just say if we change the default parameter to, let's say, minus, right? Then you'll see the answer would be -1, okay? Because it's subtracting 4 with y. But let's just say if I change this to just 5, and that the first value of like 5 would get assigned to x, and then 4 would be y, which means it is going to -4 from 5. So now if you save the code, you will see that the answer is 1, which means that you can also pass the named value to change the order of the argument. It doesn't matter in C#. As long as you have the named argument, that's what you want to do. Now let's just say if I change this to x, and then we'll do y, and then we can do operation to, let's just say, divide, save, and then the answer should be 1. Now let's just say if I don't pass in this option, what would happen? It's still 1. So it is assigning, as long as it's a named parameter, it's going to assign the value to the named matching parameter. But whatever comes in the right order, it's going to assign the value to that as well. So I'm going to change the value of x to 50, and then this one to, let's say, 5. Save. Now the x is going to divide by y because that's what it is, but we can change this to, let's say, y, and then x. Save, and let's see what happened. Now it's going to say another error that the named argument y is used out of the position, but it's not followed by an argument. So as you can see that this needs to be followed by the named argument. Once you use the named argument, and if it's not matching the order, you will need to pass in all the parameters via name argument. So if I do operation colon, this should just fix the error. And now you can see that the answer is 0 because 5 divided by 50 is like really nothing. So 0 will be the answer. Okay, that's the basic understanding of methods or function in C#. Welcome to this section of the course. It will empower you to write more efficient, maintainable, and reusable code. What is object-oriented programming? OOP, which stands for Object-Oriented Programming, is a programming paradigm that revolves around the concept of objects. Object is an instance of a class, and a class is a blueprint for creating an object, and is on four fundamental principles: encapsulation, in polymorphism, and abstraction. So what is encapsulation? Bundling data and methods that operate on that data within a single unit class. This promotes data and modularity. Inheritance, class based on the existing class to inherit all the properties and methods from the parent class. Ability of an object of different to be treated as the same. This is achieved through method overloading and overriding. Abstraction focuses on essential features of an object while hiding the implementation details. This simplifies the complex system and improves code readability. Now let's learning how to a new class. We're going to name our person. But before we do that, I would like to create a program class, which will be in class when our program runs. So to do that, we use a class keyword, and I'm going to use program, the brackets, and within this, we need to create public static return type and then the main function. And this main function will trigger when we run our program. We are going to create a new blueprint class. So we'll start by using public class and name that as person. Within this person class, we are going to create a method and a properties. The first property we'll use would be public string name property, and then public string age for the person. Then we're going to create a constructor. We are going to use the same name of the class, and this is the convention. So we use the person, and then within the parentheses, we're going to be able to get the property values when we create a new instance of this class. In this case, we will set a name and then an age. We'll use string name and then int age. And then within the constructor function, we're going to change the property from string to int. And then I'm going to use this dot name equal to name, and then this dot age equal to age. Once we create a new instance of this class, this is going to set the value that will be passed to the constructor. We can also create a new function within the class. To create a function, we just use a public void, and then function name would be, let's just say, greet. And what it's going to do is just do a console.write line. And then here we can say, hello, my name is, and then we use the concatenation using the plus symbol. We can say this dot name. Okay. And then that's it. Now let's go ahead and create a new person. And here we're going to use a type of the object, which is going to be the person type. You can create a properties like string or int or whatever the property that you want to create. It needs to have a type. So start by using a person, and in the variable name, we can say person1 equal to new person, and then pass a name and an age for this person, John 30. Next, we're going to create another person. So let's say person2 equal to new, and then person, and the name would be, let's say, Mike, and age would be 25, for example. Now we've created two persons using this blueprint class. Now, to be able to log the name, we can simply call person1.greet. That's a function. We can just run that. And then person2.greet, we're going to run that as well. Let's go to terminal, and I'm going to run program by using .NET run. Enter, and you will see it says, hello, my name is John, and hello, my name is Mike. You can actually go ahead and say person.name dot name, we'll just say my name, always. And now when I run the code, you will see that it now has hello, my name is Mike. Basically, we created this class, we created a new instance of the class, and now we can use the greet method, which will log according to the name. Now let's talk about access modifier of a class. If you look at, we have marked the property name and age as a public property. The thing is that C# allows you to create public, private, protected, and internal properties. What we need to understand is what public means and what is the private means and the protected means. Now let's create another property within this class. We can use a private and we can just say int, we're going to say marks. Okay. Now we are going to use another property, which is going to be protected, and we're going to say ABC, and that's going to be actually string, and then we can say ABC because I don't know what to assign. And then we also have this internal property access modifier, which is going to be XYZ. And what is the difference between the public, private, and protected? Public basically is accessible for all classes. Private code can only be accessible within the class. So for example, if we are going to set private property, let's just say marks, which is going to be integers, int marks. Now, when we create a new person, we need to pass the marks as well. Let's just say 54 John. For Mike, we can just 90. I'm going to remove this, okay? Now let's run the code. .NET run command, and as you can see, it just prints out as expected. Now, what is the way to get access or update this mark property? Once you create the instance, if I try to use the person one dot, you see it gives me access to age, name. I can change those values. It also give me access to the greet function, but I cannot see the private property, which in this case is marks. So how do we update or get marks? To be able to get marks, because that's a private property, you don't want anybody to update those. You can create a method. Let's just say we can use public method and then say int value get marks, and then we can say return these marks. Now if I try to access the marks, you can actually use get marks function, and this is going to hide the value of the marks but also be able to return it, but you cannot update that. So if you want to update the marks, then you need to apply the setter as well. What is the difference between private and protected? Private cannot be accessed outside the class, only within the class. As you can see, we cannot access marks here, or we cannot access these marks on a person one or person two from the outside. The protected means the code is accessible within the same class or in a class that inherits from that class. So we will learn inheritance shortly. Bear in mind what the protected means. The internal is only accessible within its own assembly, but not from another assembly. Now, we will also learn more about this later, but for now, just remember we have a public, private, protected, and internal. Now, we're going to go to some other class properties. Let me just move down or maybe zoom out a little bit. Now, property and encapsulation. What is the concept behind encapsulation? Before we start explaining properties, you should have a basic understanding of encapsulation. This meaning of encapsulation is to make sure that the sensitive data is hidden from users. To achieve this, you must use a private variable. The private makes these marks hidden, and you can only access it by calling this function, but cannot update its value once this is created. Provide public get and set method through properties to access and update the value. So you can create a setter method as well to update the marks later. Now, we also want to learn about properties. The private variables can be accessed within the same class, but doesn't have access from the outside. Then we're going to talk about inheritance. I'm actually going to revert a few things in our code. We don't need these marks and these properties. I'm going to update the constructor that we don't need marks for this, and get marks function. Let's get rid of that as well. So we have a plain person class, which has a name and an age. So within our instances, I'm just going to remove that marks value and then this function. And let's see if our code still runs. Run. It should just run. Okay, that's good. Now, what is inheritance? Well, in C#, it is possible to inherit properties and methods from one class to another. And we group the inheritance concept into two categories: parent class, or you can call it a base class. You can call a derived class or a child class, which inherits from another class. The parent class is like which is going to be inherited. Now we have created a person class. Now let's go ahead and create another class. We would call it class student. Within this class, we are going to set some properties. So we're going to say public, string, or actually integers, and then we can say marks, and then we can just say public, string, grade, and then string, and we can use this year or whatever. Now let's just say you're going to create a new student, right? What we need to do is, first of all, create a constructor. So let's say public student. There's a mistake that I've done. The class name should start from the capital. And then in here, we are going to allow people to update when they're creating this student, right? So we can just say int marks, then grade would be string grade, then string year. Okay, then we're going to say this dot marks equal to marks, this dot grade equal to grade, this dot year equal to year. Let's save it. And here's a problem. There should be marks. And the way we can extend the properties and method from the person class is by adding these colon and then the name of the class, which is going to be person. After adding the person as a base class, there is an error to pass the base class property because we're using the constructor function on the base class. Go in here after the parentheses, press enter, use a colon, and then base, and then the name of the property required by the base constructor, which is going to be this. Now let's go up there, and then we're going to create a new student instead of a person. I'm going to use this student and stu1 equal to new student, and then we need to pass in, let's just say the first value is marks, let's say 30, and then the grade is a string. I will just say 10th, 19 or 2024, comma, and then the name would be John, and then age is like 50. Okay, now I'm gonna create a new student, but I'm gonna use a variable to, let's just do 2, and we're gonna change this age to 20, grade is gonna be 8, and then year is gonna be 2022. Then we can just say Mike is gonna be the name. Now let's just say if I use this stu dot, you will see that we have a greet function. We didn't write a greet function in the student class. Where this coming from? Because we extended using inheritance our student class from the derived or parent class, person class, that means the person class properties are going to be available in a student class as well.
Now let's just say if I use this greet, you'll see in the terminal when I run the code, .NET run, you'll see that it will print, hello, my name is John. That's because the person class has been extended from the student class, and the greet function is available in both students. Next, we're going to talk about abstract classes and methods. Right now, we have this person class and a student class. Data abstraction is the process of hiding certain details and showing only essential information to the user. Abstraction can be achieved with either abstract classes or interfaces, which I will show you in a bit. Now, abstract keyword is used for classes, and abstract keyword is also used for methods. So abstract class is a strict class that cannot be used to create object to access, and it must be inherited from another class. So for example, for our person class, let me try creating a new person. I'll just say person equal to new person, and we can just say hello, and then age is like 45, right? Right now, as you can see, you got the person class created, and this has ability to change the age and the name, and it also has a greet function. But how about creating this as an abstract class, which means we cannot initialize its new instances. This class can only be used by extending from other class. Now, if I go ahead and then in the person class, I will mark this class as an abstract. If you look at now, we go above and then you see there's an error. And the error clearly tells us cannot create an instance of abstract type or interface person. So abstract classes, you can't create a new instance of them. To access the abstract class, it must be inherited from another class. We can simply see if we run the code, you have access to the greet function, which is sitting in the person class. Now we're going to talk about an enum. An enum is a special class that represents a group of constants, unchangeable read-only variables. To create an enum and use enum keyword and separate the enum items by comma. So if I'm going to create a person's attributes, so we just use enum and I say person, we add curly brackets, and then here are the properties. Let's say name, comma, age. You can access enum items. We're going to learn how to work with files in CSharp class. If you want to access the reading a file, creating a file, deleting a file, checking if the file exists, variable reading all the text, or replacing the content of a file with another file. Let's access name. Or write all we can text, also access which means create a new file and writes the content age equal to if the file already exists. It will and now we are going to use console.write how do we write to a file and then write the value stored in we go to the code and then in our main program we are going to read and change the value to age. Go inside let's go to terminal and then let's run this code. A new file there, guys. So run command save, and you'll see it prints out inside name and age. You can also define an enum within the class. In the class, we're gonna just paste that. This and I will run the code again, and you'll see it works the same way. By default, the first item of an enum has a value 0. The second has a value 1, and so on. To get an integer value from an item, you must explicitly convert the item to an int. So in this case, age, we are going to change that a standard library of CSharp, so don't worry about installing anything. All you need to convert that into age. Now when I run the code, you will see it will give you the integer value. Let's just move the age to use above the file reader, file writer in the C#. And then we run it. Let's go in the main program. The age value will now be printed as 0. String. They're often used in switch statements to check the corresponding value. I'm going to define it, just going to paste that to save time in the class. And let's just format the document. Here's our statement. So when I run the code, let's see which console log is printed. Low, save, let's do a .NET run, and then it's a low level. So
Oftenly, enums are used with switch statements. Next, we're going to start working on a small project, which will give you understanding of how we program a simple calculator in C#. This is going to be our first exercise where we are going to build a simple calculator application. Here's my program and main method. I'm going to start by defining Boolean variable, which we're going to name this as calculating, continue calculating. Then I'm going to start using while loop. Our expression, and we need a curly bracket. An expression would be continue calculating. Within a while loop, I would like to display some nice messages. So I will write on the console, welcome to the C# console calculator. After this, I'm going to get the first number from the user. This is the first time I'm going to show you how you can get the number from a user using a console. There's an API. That's our get the first number from the user, and there's a console.readLine function that reads a value from the console, and then I'm going to use this convert to double, which is going to convert that number that I received from a user to a double value. Then let's get a second number. Then we are going to ask user for operation. So the operation is going to be either plus, minus, multiplication, or division for now, because this is a simple calculator that we are creating. Again, this function console.write will basically create a empty line for us. And here's we are getting the operation, basically a single character from the keyboard. Now, in this case, we have got this character, and I'm going to use a double character and then use result like that. Now we're going to use a switch statement to check what is an operation that is provided by a user. I'm going to actually paste the switch statement here. So we just save time. You see me typing. So let's go over the switch statement. Basically, the switch statement starts from a switch keyword, and then the expression, and then the curly bracket start. Here we can set the cases. So if user passing the plus symbol, then we will operate with this function. It's like result is going to equal number 1 plus number 2. And then it's going to write a value to the console. If the operation is passed as minus key, then the operation will be this. Then we got multiplication and division. So division has some more logic. If you know basic math, you can get what I'm doing here. After this switch statement, and then we are going to ask if they want to perform another calculation. We're not going to end the program. We want to ask user if they want to have another calculation. And to do that, we're going to create this console message. Console this will tell user, would you like to perform another calculation? And then we get a character from the console by using console.readLine.keychar, and it's going to be Y or yes. So if the user type Y, then the choice is going to be, if user not typing Y, then it's going to continue making it false, which means this while loop will continue running. After everything, we can basically say, okay, everything is done. I'm going to just say, thank you for using the calculator. Goodbye. Now let's format the file, and then we have this calculator code. Now let's go ahead, and then I think the console log should go just after this. Now let's go to terminal, and we're going to run .NET run command. This could not find a project. I need to go inside this console application, right click on that and select open in integrated terminal. And we said run, and this is going to run our calculator. Here it says, welcome to the C# console calculator. The first number, let's say 2, and then 2, We're going to select an operation plus, and the answer is 4. As you can see, it is printing out that value and then giving us what was the expression that it evaluated. Now it's asking, would you like to perform another calculation? Let's do that. Yes. 5, second value would be 5. And this is going to use the multiplication. And then here we get an answer of 5 multiplied 5 is 25. Then it's keep asking whether you want to add another calculation. So I'll just say no. And then you can see it says, thank you for using calculator and goodbye. So this code will basically allow us to do 4 set of calculation. And then you can use this backend code for the front-end application. You can get the server to do these calculations for you. This was a quick exercise, how we build a calculator in C#. Let's take a look at next how we manipulate, read, write files using C# on your computer, whether it's a Mac or a Linux computer. Let's start by learning files in this section of this video. We're going to learn how do we create a file, delete a file, copy a file, check if the file exists, then do something. You can read all text or write all text. You can also use append text method. So we're going to look at some of the utility function that is provided by file class. And the file class in C# is in a standard library, which means it is available. To access the file class, if I type file, you'll see there's going to be a problem. What you need to do to be able to use file class is use the keyword using and then use system.io. Now we can read, write, create, and delete files. I've got this temp file. Let me read the content of this temp file using the code. We're going to be looking at this file, read, all text, and then the path, temp.txt, and store that in a string variable. I'll say string file. Now let's do a console.write. Now let's run the code .NET run. Ensure the project exists. Right click, open the terminal in the console app 1. Then .NET run command, and it will print the content from that file. I'll change this file to, let's say, hello, this is this second line. Save it and then run the code, and you'll see it reads the file accordingly. How do we create a file? Creating a file is very simple in C#. You can just use the file class and say create function and pass the name of the file that you want to create. Let's say hello.txt file, and then I will run the code, and you'll see there's a new file called hello.txt which is created. It is empty right now. But let's write something to this file. We will be creating a new string message equal to, this is my newly created file. We are using this file class, and this is write all text, which requires 2 things: a path, which in this case is going to be hello.txt, and then it's going to take a message content. Now let's go run .run command, and you'll see that this says hello. This is the second line. This is my newly created file. It has overridden the content. This function, if the file already exists, will just override it. Let's say you want to append something to the file. We are going to comment out these 2 lines because our file has already been created. So I will create string, second append. We're going to be using file.append text or append all text. VS Code is great because every time you press dot, you will see related functions for a file class or any class in C#. You should see the description next to it, which tells you exactly what this function is going to do. If I do append text, we are going to append to hello.txt. Now here's a problem. We're going to use append all text. Let's see what happens. If I run this code again, you will see the hello. Now I have, this is the second appended line. And we need to create that as a breakpoint to see different lines. I'm going to run it again. This time it should have Second line, line break. I'm showing you how to do line break. In C#, it's appending the content to the file. Now you can go ahead and then look at all the files methods that are available, which is very self-explanatory, like copying a file. Let's say I want to copy the existing file. So file, copy. It requires the source file, hello.txt, and then the destination would be cop.txt. Right there. Save. And then when now I run the code, you'll create a copy of the file with a text to find what you need from a file. Just do file dot and then here all the functions available for you to use. That's it about the file class. I hope you liked this tutorial. This is where we end our crash course. We have covered basic syntax, data types, loops, switch statements, classes. We will get you up and running with C# as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll speak to you in the next one. Cheers.